Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 93.
Today, we are diving into a wildly chaotic 24-hour period in the life of this ancient, massively powerful aristocratic family.
Oh, the Gia family.
Mm.
Yeah, their daily operations are just fascinating to unpack.
Seriously, I mean, we are plunging straight into a world where covering up a violent, bloody extortion racket is, just another Tuesday morning.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But at the same time, being a genuinely honest person will literally get your entire bloodline ruined.
Right, your family name just erased from high society entirely.
It's brutal.
Exactly what this single day tells us about, well, the mechanics of power.
And the terrifying weight of a guilty conscience, too.
Yes, and what happens when a massive empire, or in this case a noble family, just begins to rot from the inside out?
It is a phenomenal text to explore, honestly, because it operates as this absolute masterclass in institutional decay.
That really is.
Like, we aren't just looking at a soap opera of the historical rich and famous here.
No, definitely not.
We are examining the precise, really granular mechanisms of how a massive organization struggles to maintain its facade when the actual foundations are crumbling.
We'll connect a bunch of seemingly isolated events.
Yeah, the source throws a lot at you all at once.
It does. We've got a stolen cart of winter rent on a muddy road, a beautiful actor mesmerizing this elite audience, a spooky dream about skeletons, and a scandalous viral poster slapped onto a front gate.
It sounds chaotic, right? But when you look at the underlying architecture of these events, they all reveal one unified theme.
Which is what?
The desperate, exhausting maintenance of reputation or face over actual substance.
And what is so striking to me is how familiar the mechanics of this society feel.
Oh, absolutely. The parallels are everywhere.
The tactics this family uses to manage their scandals, suppress bad news, and, protect their brand.
Yeah, it looks uncomfortably similar to how institutional PR crises are handled right now.
It really does. So let's just dive right in. We have to start with the first major crisis of the day, which kind of sets the baseline reality for everything else.
Highway robbery.
Exactly. We are introduced to the family's rent collectors. These guys have traveled from Haugia village, bringing all this agricultural wealth that the Gia state needs for the winter.
Right, the October rent. It's a huge deal.
But they arrive empty-handed, and they are literally beaten and bloody.
Yeah, they've been the victims of an actual highway robbery.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the specifics here are wild.
The details of this robbery are so vital to understanding the world outside the estate walls.
Right.
Because in this agrarian-based aristocratic system, this isn't just like a casual delivery of spare funds.
No, it's the lifeblood of the estate.
Exactly. It's the grain, the livestock, the raw materials they need to literally survive the harsh months ahead.
But well before they reach the safety of the capital, the convoy just gets intercepted.
And not by bandits, which is the crazy part.
Right. It's the local government guards, the yamen guards, who are essentially the muscle for the local magistrate.
Yeah, they just arbitrarily seize 2 entire carts of the family's rent goods.
And they don't just commandeer the carts with, some fake paperwork.
No, they physically assault the cart drivers. They beat them bloody when the drivers try to protect the property.
See, that seems completely backwards to me.
How so?
Well, in a society so rigidly defined by class and hierarchy, how does this happen? The source makes it abundantly clear that the Gia family are elite nobility with immense political leverage.
Oh, they have massive power.
So if they are so powerful, why are low-level government guards bullying their staff on the public highway?
It's a great question.
Shouldn't the mere mention of the Gia family name act as this, impenetrable shield against local thugs?
You would naturally assume that, sure.
Mhm.
But the reality of geography and bureaucracy kind of changes the rules entirely.
Really?
Well, out on the muddy provincial roads, miles away from the manicured gardens and the political center, raw, immediate physical power trumps a distant aristocratic title.
So it's just about who has the swords in that exact moment.
Exactly. The guards operating on the highway are just conducting a basic shakedown.
Right.
In the heat of the moment, they don't care whose card it is. Or at least, they deliberately pretend not to care until they are officially challenged.
Because the rent collector does try to warn them, right?
He does. He explicitly tells them, hey, this is the Gia family's rent. This isn't some merchant's cart.
But they just ignore him.
Yeah, because in that specific geographic isolation, the guards hold the monopoly on violence. They take what they want because they have the weapons.
And they're betting that the bureaucratic friction required to punish them is just too high for anyone to actually bother.
Precisely. It's a calculated risk.
So it's essentially a stress test of power.
That's a great way to put it.
They are betting that the cost of fighting back is higher than the value of the 2 carts. But the source provides this incredibly dark detail that shows just how calculated this violence is.
The contrast with the merchants, right?
Yes. The rent collector mentions that, yes, the Gia servants were beaten up, which is a massive insult.
Of course.
But the regular merchants, the traveling businessmen who are sharing the road but don't have a wealthy patron,
Oh, it's horrifying how they are treated.
they were treated so much worse. The guards didn't just take a fraction of their goods, they threw the merchants' entire livelihoods right into the dirt.
They operated with absolute, terrifying impunity.
Yeah, the text says if a common merchant even dared to speak up to defend his property, the guards beat him until his head was broken and bleeding.
That contrast really highlights the brutal, unspoken hierarchy of the world outside the estate.
It's so dark.
The Gia family servants suffer, yes, but their suffering is mitigated by the shadow of their master's status.
Right, the guards take 2 carts, not the whole convoy.
Exactly. They beat the servants, but they don't kill them.
But the common merchants have absolutely no institutional recourse.
None. They are treated as prey. They exist completely outside the protection of the elite network.
Which makes them entirely disposable to the local enforcers.
Yeah, and this brings us to the resolution of the conflict, which really exposes the true nature of how justice operates here.
Because when the news reaches the Gia estate, the reaction from the management is explosive.
Oh, Lian is furious.
Right, Lian, who acts as one of the primary operational managers of the household, hears this story from his bleeding servants, and he is livid.
He wants absolute punitive retribution.
He demands a formal letter be drafted immediately to the local magistrate. He wants his fixers to go down there, demand the carts back, and ensure those specific guards are severely punished.
But that's not how it plays out when they actually get to the government office, is it?
No. When his people arrive, they are intercepted by the magistrate's gatekeeper. And the way this gatekeeper handles it is just a masterclass in bureaucratic deflection.
The gatekeepers is essentially the operational bottleneck of the local government. He understands exactly how to manage elite outrage.
He totally neutralizes the threat.
Right, he intercepts the complaint before it ever reaches the magistrate's desk.
He essentially says, please, do not escalate this to the boss.
Exactly. He claims the magistrate knows absolutely nothing about this interception. There was no official warrant.
Just rogue, lower-level enforcers acting wildly out of turn.
Having established that plausible deniability, the gatekeeper then proposes a settlement.
A secret settlement.
Yeah, he promises to return the 2 carts and all the stolen goods secretly, under the cover of night, immediately.
But there's a catch.
A big one. The Gia family must agree not to make a formal fuss. Handle it all off the books so the magistrate remains blissfully unaware of the corruption.
So we know from this that the family solves problems by making evidence disappear quietly.
That's their primary operational mode.
But let's look at the actual transaction happening here. The Gia family gets their property back. The gatekeeper avoids a catastrophic political fight.
Right.
But the guards who actually committed the violence, they don't get punished publicly. They keep their jobs.
Which means the system itself remains entirely intact.
It's the definition of symbiotic corruption.
Exactly. The Gia family secures their refund exclusively because of their elite status. But by accepting this under-the-table deal, they implicitly agree to let the extortion racket continue.
They secure their own exemption, but stay entirely silent about the racket itself.
And the people who pay the price for that silence are the common merchants.
The ones whose goods are still rotting in the mud, right?
Yeah, the ones whose heads are still bleeding on the side of the road.
Because if the Gia family had pushed the issue formally, they might have dismantled that checkpoint entirely.
Which would have inadvertently protected the merchants.
Wow. So by taking the quiet deal, the Gia family essentially validates the guards' behavior toward everyone else.
The elites protect their own privilege, ensure their supply chains are whole, and leave the rest of the world to suffer the violence of the state.
It is a completely closed-loop system of privilege. It really makes you wonder how the people orchestrating these backroom deals sleep at night.
Well, the source material transitions beautifully to answer exactly that question.
How do they justify it?
They build highly curated, sensory-rich, cultural bubbles that physically separate them from the muddy, violent reality of the streets.
Right. Because while the fixers are negotiating over beaten servants, the young heir of the family, Bao Yu, is attending this elite theater party.
At the Lennon Earl's estate. It is an entirely different universe.
It's designed specifically to keep the harshness of the outside world at bay.
The contrast is completely intentional. You move from the dirt and blood of the highway to an environment of absolute engineered refinement.
The source painstakingly details the exclusivity of the guest list, right?
Yes, the rigid etiquette and the overwhelming sensory experience of the performance itself.
They are listening to highly complex styles of opera.
Slow, poetic melodies alongside these vibrant, percussive regional styles that demand immense vocal control.
It's an oasis of culture.
And stepping into the center of this oasis is the actor, Lian.
Oh, the visual description of him is mesmerizing.
It really is.
It paints him with a face of powdered perfection, lips like vermilion.
Standing out like a fresh lotus rising from a still pond.
Or a jade tree swaying gently in the wind. It's almost supernatural aesthetic beauty.
But looking at the social mechanics of this world, something about his presence doesn't quite add up.
Right, because in a society rigidly defined by birth, an actor is fundamentally considered a lower-class citizen.
Exactly. They are entertainers, legally closer to property than to the aristocrats they perform for.
So how does this actor command such total hushed reverence from a room full of nobles?
That contradiction is the absolute core of his power.
Tell me more about that.
Well, in strict legal terms, Jang Yuhan is at the bottom of the ladder. But inside that theater, he completely subverts that expectation through his artistic mastery.
And his carefully cultivated personal independence.
Yes. The aristocrats aren't just watching him. They are actively gossiping about his personal life.
The Whisper Network is buzzing with the fact that he has actually leveraged his talent into tangible financial independence.
He isn't just a kept entertainer. He bought his own properties.
Wait, he owns commercial shops in the city, right?
Yeah, 2 or 3 of them. He has achieved economic sovereignty in a system explicitly designed to keep people like him dependent.
Here is where it gets really interesting, though.
His romantic life.
Yes. The most subversive piece of gossip is that Yang refuses to marry just anyone for convenience.
He firmly believes marriage is a profound, lifelong emotional commitment.
And he simply does not care about a potential partner's rank. Highborn, noble, commoner off the street, it doesn't matter to him.
His only requirement is that his future partner matches his own artistic and emotional depth.
He is holding out for a true equal, which is incredibly radical.
It completely flips the script on the power dynamics.
Huh.
Out on the highway, rank and physical muscle meant everything.
But in this theater, the supposedly lowly actor holds the ultimate emotional high ground over the elites.
He enforces strict personal boundaries and outright refuses to bow to the societal pressure of arranged marriages.
He possesses this intense authenticity that the nobles who are all trapped in strategic marriages completely lack.
They're fascinated by him because he is free in a way they never will be.
And that display of pure authenticity hits young Baoyu with the force of a revelation.
Baoyu's just completely transfixed by the performance.
It's a play roughly translated to occupying the Flower Queen.
Right, and the text zeroes in on one highly specific emotional beat.
Jiang Yuhan is playing a character gently tending to a drunken courtesan.
And the source notes his ability to perfectly project the feeling of tender, protective love.
A specific cultural concept of pitying the fragrance and cherishing the jade. Baoyu isn't even looking at the actress. His entire focus is locked onto Jiang Yuhan.
Baoyu is witnessing something he rarely sees in his own home. Genuine, uncalculated emotion.
And this leads to a massive philosophical epiphany for him.
It does. The text states his mind is drawn to a classic Confucian text, the record of music.
He recalls that foundational principle. Emotion stirs within and so takes form in sound.
When sound takes on structure, it is called music.
That concept is beautiful, but let's break down the mechanics of what Baoyu is actually realizing here.
Okay, let's look at his environment. He's a teenager raised where every interaction is a chess move.
Right, he lives in a mansion where people smile warmly at you while calculating how to undermine your inheritance.
So to suddenly witness emotion taking form in sound, it means he suddenly understands the difference between performance and authenticity.
He realizes that true art isn't just reciting poetry.
Or hitting the correct notes just to satisfy the rules of composition. True art requires the raw transfer of genuine human emotion.
He sees that the actor isn't just pretending. He has tapped into a deep well of feeling and is vibrating that out into the room.
For Baoyu, who is suffocating in a world of polite lies, this authentic connection feels like oxygen.
It's a total awakening. He realizes music like this, bypasses the intellect and goes straight to the soul.
It cannot be faked.
He actually vows right there to dedicate himself to studying the true roots of music, to chase that authenticity.
But looking at the world he lives in, pursuing unregulated emotion seems incredibly dangerous.
Right, because this is a world that prioritizes face above all else.
It is arguably the single most dangerous pursuit you could undertake in that society.
And the source text brilliantly illustrates this danger by violently shifting the narrative right after this.
To prove how perilous authenticity is, we are introduced to a visitor from the South.
From the Zen family.
Yes. Now, structurally, the Zen family is a mirror image of the Jia family, another ancient, wealthy, powerful clan.
But the visitor brings catastrophic news. The Zen family has been utterly ruined.
Wealth confiscated, political status revoked, power shattered.
The messenger who delivers this news is a servant named Bao Yang, and his physical presence in the estate is jarring.
The visual description of him is so stark.
He's massive, broad shoulders, thick, muscular neck, bulging eyes, a heavy, unkempt beard.
A rugged, undeniable physical reality crashing into the perfumed world of the Jia family's bubble.
He arrives with a letter from the disgraced master of the Zen family, humbly asking for employment.
His physical description serves as a visual metaphor for the harsh truth he brings.
Because when Jia Zhang, the strict patriarch, asks why the family was ruined, he expects a standard political answer.
Right, he expects to hear about embezzlement or backing the wrong faction.
But Bao Yang gives this stunning, totally counterintuitive explanation.
He essentially says, "My master was simply too genuine."
Right. He explains the master was a man of unyielding sincerity. He treated absolutely everyone, regardless of rank, with unfiltered honesty.
And because he was incapable of lying, everyone ended up hating him. They conspired against him and orchestrated his downfall.
Wait, I have to push back on the mechanics of this.
Go for it.
In almost every moral framework on Earth, being genuine is positioned as the ultimate virtue. We are taught honesty is the highest good.
Usually, yes.
So how does practicing the highest moral virtue result in the total destruction of a powerful family network?
Because if we connect this to the bigger picture, in this specific sociological architecture, truth is actually a destabilizing force.
Really? A destabilizing force?
Yes, this is a highly structured society built entirely on the concept of saving face.
It relies on polite lies.
And rigid hierarchical rules. It's about the mutual agreement to say what is socially expected rather than what is objectively true.
Oh, like the gatekeeper at the magistrate's office.
Exactly. He offered a polite fiction the magistrate doesn't know to smooth over a violent reality.
So if you are part of this elite network, your job is to maintain the status quo.
You protect the collective illusion of nobility. If you suddenly introduce radical honesty into that system, if you call out corruption loudly, you become a massive threat.
So radical honesty isn't viewed as a virtue at all. It's viewed as a social virus.
Precisely. To the rest of the aristocracy, the Zen master wasn't a saint. He was arrogant and socially destructive.
He made everyone else look bad by refusing to play the game.
And this tragedy serves as a dark, terrifying mirror for the Jia family.
But the mirror gets even more specific, doesn't it?
Deeply unsettlingly so. Because Bao Yang casually mentions the doppelganger.
Right. He reveals his ruined master has a son, also named Bao Yu, Zen Bao Yu.
And the parallels between this boy in the South and our Bao Yu are uncanny.
Zhen Baoyu used to be the exact same kind of teenager. Hated studying for exams, spent all his time in the inner chambers with the women.
Driven completely by his aesthetic passions and his desire for authentic connection.
Walking the exact same path our Baoyu is currently on. But then something horrific breaks him.
He contracted a severe, life-threatening illness. He fell into a coma.
And during this near-death experience, he has this incredibly vivid, terrifying vision.
The details of the dream are just haunting.
Bao Yang recounts that Zhen Baoyu finds himself walking up to a massive archway leading into a vast, silent temple.
But inside, he doesn't find gods. He finds rows upon rows of massive cabinets filled with heavy records and ledgers.
He wanders deeper, expecting to find the beautiful girls he loves to play with. But when he looks at them, they transform.
Their beautiful features twist into grotesque monsters.
And then the flesh rots away entirely, leaving nothing but dry, grinning skeletons. He wakes up screaming.
What we're looking at here is a textbook example of a memento mori.
A visceral reminder of the inevitability of death.
And the ultimate emptiness of physical beauty. but it is layered with this intense bureaucratic dread.
The ledgers and records imply a cosmic tally, right?
Yes, a universal judgment of sins where every action is recorded. And the skeletons represent the brutal stripping away of the aesthetic beauty our Balyu was just swooning over at the theater.
It's the universe violently pulling back the curtain, telling him, you think you can live for beauty? Look closely, it all rots. The only thing that lasts is the ledger.
And the psychological impact on Zen Balyu is total and irreversible.
Baoyang says his personality was entirely erased.
The terror of the vision forced him to conform completely. He abandoned all his passions.
He stopped playing in the inner chambers.
He buried his head in the Confucian texts he used to hate.
And you can totally imagine Jia Zhang, our Bayu's strict father, listening to this and quietly thinking, I would give anything for my son to have a terrifying skeleton dream so he would finally start studying.
Oh, absolutely. Like the father.
It creates an impossible bind, and the supreme irony is that while the Zen family fell because they were too honest, the Jia family is surviving precisely because they are masters of deceit.
They are incredibly skilled at hiding their sins.
But as we move into the evening, that carefully maintained facade is about to crack wide open.
We transition from the abstract fear of cosmic judgment to a very literal, immediate scandal.
While the patriarchs are discussing the fallen family, the outer courtyards are descending into total panic.
Servants are frantically whispering, terrified to speak at normal volume.
Someone has pasted an anonymous poem right on the family's front gate.
It's a massive breach.
I mean, imagine if a junior employee at a huge corporation sent an anonymous whistleblowing email outlining a federal crime and CC'd the entire company and the press.
That is the exact level of institutional panic happening here.
It's a direct public attack on the family's face.
And airing dirty laundry on the front gate is essentially an act of war in this society.
The poem itself is written as a riddle, right?
Yes, a common literary device.
Mhm.
But it's a riddle absolutely everyone instantly understands.
It uses a technique called chaiji.
Exactly, which involves breaking down Chinese characters into their component parts to secretly spell a name.
Let's look at the mechanics of the riddle because it's brilliantly obvious. The poem combines the character ji, meaning west, and bei, meaning shell.
Written together, they form the character Jia, the family's surname.
Then it takes cow, the grass radical, and jin, meaning an axe or weight. Stack those together, and you get chin.
So without legally naming him, the poster is screaming the target, Jiakin.
Now, Jiakin is a younger, marginal member of the extended clan. He doesn't have Bayou status, but he recently got a very sensitive job,
He was appointed to manage the operations and finances of the Watermoon Priory.
which is a religious sanctuary for young nuns and Taoist girls, fully funded by the Jia family.
It is intended to be a place of absolute purity and spiritual dedication.
But the anonymous poem outlines explosive accusations. It publicly declares this unworthy descendant is turning the sanctuary into a chaotic den of prostitution and gambling.
It claims he is using his authority over their stipends to coerce the young girls.
Turning the prestigious mansion into a public laughingstock.
And the source material provides a deeply disturbing flashback to detail exactly how this rot took hold.
It explains that as the young girls in the priory grew older, Jia Qin, who views himself as the sophisticated romantic, began preying on them.
He first tries to coerce a specific girl named Fang Guan.
But she fiercely resists him. She actually takes her vows seriously and refuses to be intimidated.
Which is a rare flash of integrity.
Yeah.
But because she resists, Jia Qin simply pivots to easier, more vulnerable targets.
He moves his attention to a young nun named Qingxiang and a Taoist girl named Hexian.
And the text paints this sleazy, claustrophobic picture of how the abuse is normalized.
It's mid-October, freezing cold. Jia Qin travels there under the guise of delivering their monthly allowance.
But instead of dispersing the funds and leaving, he brings in fruit wine.
He gathers the girls into a private room and suggests they spend the night drinking to stay warm.
It is a calculated grooming process.
And when the sheltered girls admit they don't know the complex poetic drinking games of the elite men, he dumbs it down for them.
They start playing rowdy finger-guessing games, doing straight shots of wine.
They completely abandon their religious disciplines, their prayers, and the legal separation of sexes.
It escalates into a full-blown, illicit drunken party inside a monastery.
And what's genuinely horrifying is how casually the text describes the environment. Where are the adults? Where is the supervision?
The older nuns, who are supposed to protect these girls, don't even attempt to stop it.
One of the senior figures essentially waves it off, saying, Let the kids have their fun. Whoever wants to keep the young master company later tonight can do so.
It is a total institutional failure.
It's so disturbing.
I really want to emphasize the gravity of this specific desecration. In their world, this isn't merely a sex scandal or financial mismanagement.
It's the literal defilement of a sacred space.
Orchestrated by a member of the very family that claims to be its pious protector.
It is a glaring showcase of the moral rot of the younger generation.
The institution designed to uphold virtue is actively facilitating the exploitation of the most vulnerable women under its care.
So, this anonymous poster has just ripped the lid off a scandal that threatens the entire family's moral authority.
Which brings us to the final, and frankly, most chilling section.
Because the true test of any massive institution isn't whether terrible things happen under their watch.
Corruption happens everywhere.
The true defining test is how they react when the undeniable truth finally comes out.
When the evidence is on the front gate, do they clean house or do they bury the bodies to protect the brand?
The reaction of the Gia family provides a definitive answer. It's a cold, calculated masterclass in self-preservation.
Where human lives are treated entirely as disposable liabilities.
So what does this all mean when management finally gets the news? Let's track how this travels up the chain of command to Wang Shifeng.
Wang Shifeng, the fierce, iron-fisted manager of the household's internal affairs.
She controls the money and the discipline, but she also harbors a deeply dark past.
When the frantic whispering reaches her, and she hears a poster has exposed a scandal in a priory, she goes into absolute panic.
But she panics for entirely the wrong reason.
Her reaction reveals the immense psychological burden of her secrets. She hears the word priory and instinctively assumes it's the Mantu Priory.
Because earlier in their history, she accepted a massive illegal bribe to forcefully break up an engagement there.
An action that directly resulted in the double suicide of the young couple.
It's a monstrous crime she's kept entirely hidden. So when her maid, Pinger, accidentally misspeaks and says the scandal involves the Mantu Priory,
Shifeng's reaction is a violent physiological breakdown.
the text describes it so viscerally. The realization that her darkest crime is exposed hits her nervous system like a hammer.
She literally freezes in place. She loses the ability to speak.
The sheer terror causes a massive rush of heat to her head, her vision blacks out, she begins coughing violently.
And then she throws up a mouthful of fresh blood.
It is a shocking physical collapse.
It perfectly illustrates the physical manifestation of the psychological toll we discussed earlier.
Maintaining a web of lies while secretly knowing you are corrupt to the core destroys a physical body.
The blood she coughs up is the literal weight of her guilty conscience.
But then, and this is where the dark comedy and the profound tragedy collide, Pinger realizes her mistake.
She sees Shifeng coughing up blood.
Yeah.
And frantically corrects herself.
She says, no, wait, it's the Water Moon Priory. It's just Jia Qin exploiting the nuns.
And Shifeng's reaction is to essentially wipe the blood off her chin, take a breath, and instantly stop caring.
Her relief completely overrides her morality. She instantly brushes it off.
Her explicitly stated sentiment is, what does that have to do with me? I just recommended him for the job.
She dismisses the systemic exploitation of vulnerable girls as a trivial non-issue simply because it isn't her specific felony.
It highlights the absolute vacuum of empathy at the very top.
The arrogance is stunning. Oh, it's just the young sanctuary girls being abused, thank God.
So Shifeng taps out of the crisis management. She declares herself too sick and goes to bed.
Which leaves the actual cover-up to the men, Lian and the chief steward, Laida.
And watching these two operate is like watching professional mob fixers scrub a crime scene.
The mechanics of their cover-up are ruthlessly focused on suppressing the evidence. They have a major problem because Jia Zheng, the strict patriarch, has seen the poster.
And he is enraged. He orders an immediate formal investigation.
He commands Laida to go to the priory, round up every single young nun and Taoist girl, and bring them back for intense questioning.
He wants the truth directly from the victims.
But Jia Lian knows that if his uncle actually speaks to these girls, the truth will come out and the family will be humiliated.
He cannot allow the investigation to proceed.
So Jia Lian secretly summons Jia Qin, the abuser, into his private study.
And in a moment of pure intimidation, he pulls the whistleblower's poem out of his boot and throws it in Jia Qin's face.
Jia Qin is reduced to a trembling mess, weeping, begging for mercy. He knows he's guilty.
But Jia Lian's motivation isn't justice. It's to protect face.
He acts as a corrupt defense attorney. He coaches to categorically deny everything.
He says, bite down hard and insist none of this ever happened. If you admit a single detail, you are dead.
He is literally coaching the perpetrator to perjure himself. But even with Jia Qin locked into a denial, they still have a glaring problem.
Girls.
Yeah.
The patriarch ordered them brought to the estate.
You can hide a stolen cart by returning it in the night, but you cannot simply hide a group of traumatized human witnesses.
If those girls talk, the denial collapses instantly.
How do they make this problem legally and physically disappear?
This is where we see the absolute chilling reality of how an institution prioritizes its survival.
Lian and Lian understand the girls are the evidence. They are the liability.
So they make a calculated decision to bypass the patriarch's orders entirely.
They don't bring the girls for justice. They arrive at a terrifying final solution.
They contact a local matchmaker and immediately sell all the young girls off.
They just sell them. They traffic the victims right out of the sanctuary.
Yes. They forcefully marry them off or sell them into domestic servitude far away.
Wow.
By selling the victims, the evidence physically ceases to exist.
When the patriarch demands to see them, the managers will just bow and say, "Oh, there was no scandal. The girls reached a certain age, so we dutifully arranged marriages for them."
The entire narrative is rewritten. The family's face is flawlessly preserved.
The abuser is protected simply because he shares the surname, and the institution violently prioritizes its unblemished image over the safety of the vulnerable people it was supposed to protect.
It is the ultimate systemic betrayal.
It is a breathtakingly cold calculation. They sweep the victims entirely out of existence just to ensure the family portrait doesn't have a smudge on it.
It's horrifying, but brutally effective.